All right. All right. Welcome again, everyone, to today's webinar presented by us at Giveffect. My name is Jack Harrison, manager of our client success team. Happy for all of you that have taken the time to join with me today on our webinar topic, how to improve data quality. We'll go over 5 best practices for helping to build trust in your data. Pretty broad concept, but I'm hopeful some of the knowledge based on my experience will be helpful for you in your respective teams in your work ahead. And let me share my screen. That'd be even more helpful. Awesome. So again, my name is Jack Harrison. I'm our client success team manager. I've been at Giveffect for just about 5 years now this summer. And I've worked in my role with hundreds of different nonprofits to help them leverage their technology to solve challenges and reach their goals across their different nonprofit missions. And so everything from onboarding to data migration to talking through use cases with, again, nonprofits of all stripes and sizes so that they can experience the most success possible as they serve their communities out there in the world. Today, just a brief overview of our agenda, so you guys have an idea, is I'll just do a very brief overview for anyone who's joining today that isn't familiar with Giveffect and what kind of software we do and provide. After that, I'll keep it brief, I promise. We'll then jump into the meat of our conversation here today, just some of the main reasons why we should even be having this conversation. Why is data quality important? What are those common nonprofit data challenges, things that I'm sure you all experience, and I'll actually be prompting you with a question at that point, just to kind of get an idea of where you all are coming from. We'll review those best practices together, wrap up with some key takeaways. We will leave time for some Q&A, so of course, as you have questions throughout our conversation here, please hold those, and I'll be happy to answer as many as possible. And then for those who have the time and are willing to stay, we'll actually be having a demonstration, a mini demonstration, if you will, with one of my colleagues at the Giveffect team, Denise, one of our nonprofit solution consultants. And so I know she'd be happy to kind of go over a little bit more about what we do at Giveffect. For those that are interested, you'd be able to stay on this same webinar here. Don't have to go anywhere new. With that, let's go ahead and get started. So again, what is Giveffect? What do we do? We're a 10-in-1 nonprofit system. What are those 10 systems? Not going to name all of them here. You see them here on screen, but that's everything from your CRM, and not just that, also any of your online giving, fundraising, events management, volunteering, email marketing, just to name a select few of those, many more. And like I said, we serve nonprofits of all shapes and sizes across all different kinds of verticals, whether that be food banks, habitat affiliates, big brothers, big sisters, chapters, family service organizations, animal welfare societies, and the list goes on and on. So again, happy to be with you all here today and talk about data quality. So again, to ask ourselves that question, why is this even important? I imagine a lot of us already have an idea of why, but just to kind of frame the stakes here, of course, with having data of high quality, this is obviously going to be a part of informing your decision making, right? Day to day in your operations as a nonprofit. And so whether that's on the development side, volunteering side, marketing, grants, major gifts, and everything in between, you name it, obviously we can't really project into the future or have an idea of where we're going if we don't know where we are or where we've been. And of course, your data within any of your respective software systems, or even what's in your Excel spreadsheets, are an important, probably the most important piece of that. Having high quality data, of course, is also going to increase the ability for your team to collaborate amongst each other. With that data, is it reliable enough to where I can take this to my other stakeholders or team partners to say, hey, how about we try this method or this new practice, or think about this for our upcoming event, just to give you an idea. And then, again, building that stakeholder trust and accountability, not just for your day-to-day staff, right? But even for board members and other decision makers that have a hand in your day-to-day, the technology you use. Again, that data is key, so we can give them the right information. Another piece is effective donor engagement. Again, donor just being a stand-in for any of the types of supporters you may have out there for your organization. Because again, we can't be as effective in our engagement if we don't know what people are most likely to engage to, right? And that isn't just simply a part of demographics or race, age, etc. Of course, that can play into it. There are trends out there, but everyone is their own person. And so being able to have that individualized engagement is as important as possible. All right. And then just a couple more here. Again, just evaluation, day to day, week to week, month to month, over the course of any given year, giving you the ability to evaluate. Again, take stock of where you are, what kind of impact you're making in your community, where can we improve, where are we being caught up. Having the data is key, of course, to making those assessments. And then compliance with regulation, right? That's always there. Of course, this can differ based off of the type of work you're doing at your nonprofit. But this is often the case, a component when we think about maintaining our quality, our data quality over time. So just a few reasons why this is important for us to be talking about. And this is where I'll be asking you guys in just a moment. But these are just some of, from what our team sees, some of the most common nonprofit data challenges. One being fragmentation. And what do we mean by that? This is basically you have multiple sources collecting your data, different kinds of data. The average we see is that many nonprofits have anywhere from 4 to 6 or more different technologies that they're using, again, across fundraising platforms, donor management, volunteering, marketing. The list goes on and on. Excel spreadsheets, again, that's a part of this conversation. Having those different silos can be challenging. I know I'm probably speaking to the choir in some instances here. And so, again, this can simply provide a challenge to how you collect data and how you use it over time in your day-to-day. Second being errors, whether that is based off the tools we're using or more often than not, just the human error component, right? We're all human, we all make mistakes. But having manual data entry processes, one of our tips, just to preface for a moment here, having processes put in place, or I should say not having those put in place, will increase the likelihood of errors and inconsistencies in your respective databases or systems. And so continuing on here, simply having limited resources or expertise, based on where your particular staff is. Maybe you're a staff of one, right? You're wearing all of those different hats. And so whether a team of one or team of a few or whatever size, we all have the limited resource of time as well. And so do we have the requisite personnel? Do we have the requisite time based on various roles and responsibilities for folks at our nonprofit to both manage our data well, to have that quality assurance, and ensure we're doing well in these areas. And then lastly, again, another resource, right? Technology constraints. If I have systems, kind of going back to that fragmentation piece, that are separate or don't even talk to each other whatsoever, again, that's a constraint. I'm not going to be able to perhaps see that cross-pollination of how many of my donors are volunteers, vice versa, just to include one common example that nonprofits look to measure over time. And so again, this hinders your data utility and quality over time. Like I said, I'm really curious to hear what you guys think. We're going to pull up a poll here that you'll see on screen shortly. Let me pull this up here. And through your interface, I just want to hear, which of these challenges, choose all if they fit, from the 4 we've talked about here that you currently face in your day-to-day for your nonprofit. Okay, we'll give folks just a moment here to answer that question. Just want to get a read again on where you all are coming from here today. Okay, give folks just a little bit longer, maybe 15 or so seconds. And we'll show those results shortly here. All right, let's go ahead and end it and see what we got. Okay, got it. Looks like a lot of people choosing multiple. I expected this. So interesting, pretty even across the board, whether fragmentation, data entry errors, limited resources, and tech constraints. As you can imagine, that's why we listed these. And so it's no surprise that you all joining here today are encountering this as well. Thank you for your participation there. With that, then, let's start to talk about some of these best practices. Now, I want to be clear up front, right? All of you are coming from different teams with differing kinds of data, technology you're using. And so really what I want to do with these tips is just to get you, at the very least, in the right frame of mind in terms of how you start to embark on this journey, because it is a journey. As much as we want this conversation about data quality to be a one and done step, so to speak, it is ongoing. It is an ongoing process. So let's jump in here. Number one, first and foremost, designate a data quality staff member. Now, you may call these different things. You may call it a data owner, a data manager, database manager, of course, is a common role I've seen across nonprofit teams. But again, teams of different sizes, you may not have that one person on your team with that specific role. And so with that, then, these responsibilities are going to fall onto other staff. And so my recommendation here for you today is find at least that one person that can be designated as that data quality owner. I'll just use owner as a stand-in for this. But if you are a larger team, absolutely consider having a backup. One second here. One thing that I want to make sure I communicate here is, God forbid someone be hit by a bus. We experience churn as nonprofits, just like with any industry. And so being able to have that low downtime, so to speak, is a key part of this. Let's see here. Now, while I'm saying at least one person can own the responsibility of this upkeep and maintenance. But we'll talk about this in future steps. It absolutely is still key at the end of the day that every team member that has a hand in that data entry, whether manual or just overseeing data that comes in from, let's say, various online software you're using, there has to be more than one stakeholder responsible for this. It's certainly not going to be fair to put all of those responsibilities onto one person. Again, every team has their own dynamics to consider, but really want you to keep this in mind. And so what to think about in terms of how to implement this. As you determine who these data owners need to be, think about, again, for your own nonprofit team, what are the roles and responsibilities? Who has the most availability to oversee this kind of process? Ask yourself questions like, who uses your software systems most frequently, right? So who's going to be in the system day to day? Maybe they're the best person to designate as this data owner. Or maybe perhaps maybe this is the same person, maybe it's not. Think about maybe who are the most technically savvy team members that will be able to not simply execute this period, but execute this effectively. Everyone comes with their own background of hard and soft skills. Take stock of who you have on team and who is going to be able to do this. And a really important piece, I think, also is this last point here, that you really need to empower your data owners so that the rules we talk about that you'll want to establish can be enforced effectively, right? We'll see in a moment, just to even mention here, a lot of times, I'd say majority of the times, just based on the teams I've worked with, that data owner, that database manager, in terms of the organizational structure of the nonprofit, a little bit lower on the totem pole, just to use a turn of phrase. And so as we're thinking about department directors, board members, EDs, CEOs, et cetera, we want to ensure that these data owners have the ability to hold other team members accountable, and have that be a part of this process as they're designated, so that expectations are clear across all team members. Second tip is standardize your data collection as much as humanly possible. Establish that uniform data entry process. Now, I'm under no illusions. Again, you're collecting data of all different types, again, whether that be donor data, volunteer data, constituent data based off of the different individuals or community members that you serve through your programs and services. And so whether it's one process or multiple, try to have this be as uniform as possible. And some of the things you need to ask yourself or determine is, okay, of what we need to enter, what comes in automatically, right? Based off of users visiting the website, filling out various forms, giving, signing up to volunteer, et cetera. And based on the technology you're using, can you say create templates for your manual data entry. For example, and we do this with Giveffect at the point of gift entry. Do you have common values based off, let's say, the specific campaign you're entering these gifts for, or any other general ledger parameters for your financing and reporting? Can I set those templates so that my folks that are doing the data entry can simply use those templates and reduce, right? Remember, one of those challenges, that potential human error, okay? And then again, ask yourself that question, because you may not already know this, right? I know you guys have a lot of spinning plates. Does your software even allow you to control and communicate what's required versus what is optional in terms of what data we're collecting as folks are engaging in various activities with our nonprofit? Look for those. If they do, use them. Whether that is, again, that could be determining which fields are mandatory versus optional. Okay. And again, some things to think about as far as how you implement this. I really want to emphasize this first piece to, again, as much as possible. I know there's it could be a burden at times to get everyone in the same room, given roles and responsibilities, but you really should include all stakeholders at the outset. Who do I mean by stakeholders? At the very least, think about the leaders of those respective teams, whether they be department heads, managers, what have you, because obviously they're going to have the best idea, ideally, of what they are looking for in their work, in, let's say, the fundraising data they need to collect, in the volunteering data they need to collect, and so on. And so, what you don't want to have happen is, let's say the data owner that you designated in step one is running this process, and they're not as familiar with all the ins and outs of what your development team needs. And then we have to go back to the drawing board because we realize we're not collecting what we need. And so taking more time to restart that process. And so get it right first and try to eliminate the need to go back. Also, think about the most common scenarios for data entry, right? And then establish the steps required to meet the needs of your stakeholders. So again, whether that's signing up to volunteer, filling out an application, making a donation, buying a ticket, registering to attend an event. Think about all the ways that data is coming into your system. And so at the very least, you have that focus of those entry points of how data is coming in, right? And because again, one thing I should have even mentioned at the beginning, and I'll mention here now, is you get out what you put in. Hopefully that's clear to everyone already here today. So again, you get out what you put in, familiarize yourself with all those various entry points. You'll be that much better off, at the very least, in terms of diagnosing how to move forward as you're collecting that data. Okay. And then lastly here, meet on this and train your team on this approach. And the most important piece here is document. Do we want Greg or Janice to open the door to the office, poke their heads in, and ask you how to do X, Y, Z? We may sometimes, but more than likely, after we do that training, we want them to be able to work on their own volition, not have to ask those questions that make your day less and less efficient and degrade your daily operations. Create that guidebook, that process book, again, based on whether it's, think about your manual data entry folks, what do they need to enter? What are the most common scenarios they're going to encounter? What are the most common points of contention they might have or questions? Include that in your documentation. And again, you may be thinking, Jack, this is going to take time. I'm going to say it once. You'll probably hear me say it a few more times throughout our conversation here today. If you do not bite the bullet at the beginning, it's going to be 10x worse for you down the line. I've seen this firsthand, whether 6 months down the line, 12 months down the line. It's just going to continue to snowball, and it's going to be that much more daunting to think about making a correction. So the sooner, the better. Okay. Number 3 is, obviously, take a look at cleaning your data. What do I mean by this? You could have malformed or simply unnecessary data. One thing, again, given my experience with nonprofits of all shapes and sizes, is I've seen hoarders out there. They don't have TLC shows about them, but more data does not always equal better data. I'm here to tell you. And so take stock. This kind of goes over to this entire process we're talking about today. Take stock of what you truly need. You may think, over time, or maybe you're just taking the rules from the last person in your role, and you don't really know why you're collecting a certain data point. Take stock of that. Don't just do process for process sake. If this is a hindrance, perhaps in terms of, we're collecting so much data, I don't know what to make sense of or what to use. Reduce what you're taking in. And so at the very least, you can establish your proof of concept and then branch out into perhaps other fields, other data points that can be helpful to your team based on the goals or reporting requirements for your organization. And in terms of malformed data, this may be thinking of, this gets back to, I'll use manual data entry here, where let's say we have two different folks, we have Greg and Janice, and as we're entering address data, maybe Greg puts unit number before every apartment number, whereas Janice doesn't, because we don't have a process put in place. And so now when I go to run those reports, it's inconsistent and not as reliable, and I can't have that trust in my data that I know we all want to have at the end of the day. That's what I mean by malformed data. And so once we're correcting the record and establishing the way to move forward, let's also take stock of the data we have and do the best we can to clean it so that it does match those standards that we've now set forward for ourselves. And then, like I said, for the data that we deem unnecessary, get rid of it. Free up that space in your system. Maybe it's even removing, you see here, one of the points here, questions to ask yourselves in terms of how to implement this. You may need to look at removing defunct records. Okay, what do I mean by this? Maybe these are contacts you've had in your system for a number of years. You send them emails, you send them pieces of letter mail, and they just never engage with anything you have going on. If it's worth it, if it's worth the trade-off to your organization, consider removing them from your system so that you have as much capacity as you need. I know a lot of softwares out there, of course, have those capacities on how many records you have in your system. And so that's an important piece of this. Again, come back to whether automatic data entry or manually, that those mandatory fields you've determined from your process are present in the records in your system, again, to the best of your ability. And whether this is your data owner, I would start with this person doing this. But again, for any stakeholders that have a hand in this, maybe you're even big enough to have a data team, is spot check your records. While a lot of teams will just, at the end of the week, at the beginning of the week, end of the month, periodically do this, it could be worth on a random day, if you have time, to spot check some records and see if the processes that your team has put in place are being used. Because of course, I know we all want to be able to trust our team members at the end of the day. There could be miscommunication. That's the nature of the work. And so performing these periodic spot checks to ensure system quality is just one tool in the toolbox to ensure that your team is doing the best possible work with what you have and the processes you've put in place. And then that way, as you identify discrepancies, you know who to go to, how to address it. And again, this gets back to empowering your data owners so they can have those conversations, those frank and hopefully productive conversations. Obviously, this is not meant to come down on anyone as they make mistakes, because we're all human, right? Maintain that empathy with your colleagues. But again, by having these processes and then checking on them, we can then more easily find these discrepancies and correct the problem. And then last piece here, I've seen this, it's not as common, but maybe some of you here today have come across this. There's all kinds of public data out there that you can find to then import into your system so as to have new donor pools or new volunteer pools or folks to engage with your organization. While this can be helpful, sometimes it can't be, because again, I'm not going to determine, of course, whether it's helpful for your team or not. That's your decision. But as you ask yourself this question, don't just think, oh, more records is going to mean more money automatically. It may not. So ask yourself the question, does the data that we can acquire or purchase, does the data meet our team's established standards? Or is it just going to take up space? Okay, important question to ask yourselves, because I've seen it firsthand with teams. They think, oh, you know what? Jack, I found this list out here. I imported it into the system. It's taking up this much of our capacity 12 months down the line. It really wasn't all that useful to me. And so, again, I've had to have those conversations. Ask yourself those things at the outset to eliminate that as much as possible. Number 4, reduce manual entry as much as possible. Now, this may be a part of your technology, and we'll get to that in a moment. Again, remember that people can make mistakes, but anything you can automate, do it. It's not, of course, just going to give you the peace of mind, whether you're the data owner or director or ED or whatever your role in the organization may be. But it's going to give peace of mind to your folks who are entering this data at the end of the day. It's going to make it even easier for them, more streamlined. So there's, again, less risk for human error. Okay. And it's not lost. We talked about this. It was one of the challenges. We all have limits on time. And so data entry naturally can occupy a considerable amount of time, depending on what your software allows you to do. But it doesn't have to be. So again, take stock of what you have, learn more about the tools you're using, because there may be, shortcuts, workarounds, processes that you can employ that's going to make it easier, not just for your team to do the work, but to do that work in less time and give you that time back in your day to dedicate to your mission and tackle the other many important objectives on your respective plates. And like I said earlier, I'll say it again, more data is not always better. Okay, it simply isn't. It can really be a hindrance if it's not of good quality. And so how to implement this, what to think about, make a commitment, whether you're that data owner or any other relative stakeholder, you're going to have to block out that time. Again, I know we all have various time commitments, but whatever is the best possible fit for your team, maybe it's at the end of every year, and that's the best you can muster because you have that downtime, let's say right after the holidays. That's okay. If that's what works for your team, if that's your capacity, have at it. But you need to dedicate that time and stick to it because, again, if you let it snowball, that trust of your data is going to continue to degrade and degrade and degrade, and lead you to be a less efficient team at the end of the day. And we, of course, do not want that. Also, think about what can be done in the moment versus at a later time. Do I need to, in my day-to-day right now, stop all what I'm doing just to enter in these 10 checks that I have? Or will it be better for me to keep that stack of checks over the week, just to use one common example, and do it all in my time block for Friday afternoon, let's say, okay? Ask yourself those strategic questions and of your team members. Keep in mind what's most important to your SOP, right? Your standard operating procedures we talked about in step 2. Have that be your true north, your goal at the end of the day, so that you don't get off, sidetracked with, new goings on, new data that's coming into your system that doesn't exactly fit into that procedure. Again, establish your proof of concept, stay small and fast, and then as your team builds that trust and gets into that groove, then expand your reach, expand what you're collecting, what tools you're deploying at the end of the day. And then again, it's all about honesty, right? Be honest with your stakeholders. I've had teams, again, I have personal experience with this, where directors of departments or board members, want to see certain data points. Maybe that's a certain number of donors over a certain giving threshold, or there's many more complex ones than that. But based on those asks, you may have constraints, again, because of that fragmentation, because of the bad current quality of your data, that you're not going to be able to provide that. Or even given these improved procedures, I still can't give you X piece of data, but here's what I can give you. Again, of course, we want to be honest with those stakeholders where there are constraints to eliminate that internal friction at our organization. Of course, this is a critical piece to keep in mind. And then lastly, invest in modern technology that meets your needs. I know you all are well aware, but I'll say it anyway, that of course, no software tool is wholly cost-free. Sure, there are some free tools out there that may establish a baseline for what you need, but obviously price is not the only cost to consider. Aside from the price point, comes back to think about your staff time. Think about, if I'm spending time because my current technology bogs me down, that's an opportunity cost I'm losing to prioritize other goals that my team is working on to fulfill our mission. Sure, the price point may be higher, but does it give your team that time back in their day to more closely, more precisely meet these goals that are established per your mission? And again, think about turnover. Are there, find the right tool to where if someone were hit by a bus or just natural turnover, like in any industry occurs, do we have tools that allow us to not have that severe loss of institutional knowledge? Again, do we have that documentation per our technology to have that downtime be as short as possible and train that new staff? And I'll say this as a client success team manager myself, try and look for tools, ask them the questions of, what does your support look like? Do you provide training for new staff? A lot don't. Now we do at Giveffect. But again, that's just where I'm coming from, of course. But obviously, these are other costs that you'll want to keep in mind. And then again, don't think about only about how these tools can allow you to collect more data on donors, volunteers, etc. But think about tools that are going to allow your staff to build their own skills and increase their own value to your organization. Hopefully everyone is looking towards growth, whether it's in their current role or looking for future roles. But give them, empower them, again, coming back to that word empower them with those tools so they can accomplish their work more efficiently and of higher quality for your organization. And again, put time back in their day to dedicate to other responsibilities. And this last bullet point, it's not lost on me. This can be a tough conversation, but please do the best you can to not let certain staff keep you in the dark ages. I've seen this from major decision makers at the top to important team members at the bottom who have a heavy hand in data entry or just the day-to-day operations of the nonprofit. Folks have fears and anxieties. That's natural. We all come from our own background of tools we've used or not used in the past. And we're coming into, over the past several years, there are more and more nonprofit software tools than ever before to assist teams. But then it comes back to something I just mentioned a moment ago, to help assuage those fears and anxieties. Find technologies that provide your team with quality training. There are some tools out there, they just have you watch videos or go to the FAQs, go to the, to the library. And that's the extent of it. We have more than that at Giveffect, but that's an important consideration at the end of the day that I want any of your decision makers or at your organization to keep in mind. Because we can move out of the dark ages, we can do things bigger and better. And so don't let those anxieties hold your team back. Okay, getting towards the end of the road here, folks. Just some key takeaways, if anything, that you grab from our conversation here today, is develop a process that can be adhered to by all. Because again, consistency is going to make it as easy as possible for anyone involved in this process. The more caveats, the more but-fors, the more complexity. It's just going to take both more time or more brain power, if you will, to execute. And so try to simplify your process. Again, I said it before, I'll say it again. Start small, establish a proof of concept, and then build your processes out. Like I said, more data is not better data. I promise you. And as you look at the chat here, my friend here, Tara, as we get closer to our Q&A, if you have any questions, feel free to submit it using the Q&A icon. I'll be happy to answer those. These final few points here: automate where possible to save that time and reduce human error, and invest in tech that meets your needs and supports your team as much as possible. That's step 5 we talked about with those different costs and considerations. Okay, I appreciate those who have stuck with me thus far. Before we go into any particular questions, remember that my colleague Denise from our team will be staying for anyone willing to learn a little bit more about Giveffect and what we do as a nonprofit software. Anyway, so stick around after the Q&A if you're interested in that. Let's see. First question I see here is, how can we use new tools? For example, ChatGPT, AI, it's all the rage nowadays. How can we avoid issues with security of sensitive information? This is a really good question. And absolutely, whether it's ChatGPT or other open AI tools, because that's the underlying software being used here for these various language models and tools. In fact, I will say, right, we introduced just this week, Giveffect has our own AI writer tool that our folks are now using. Do not, it's their recommended policy, these tools, but it'll also be mine here today. Do not input sensitive information, donor information into those tools. You do not want to compromise the security of that information. Now, if the question is coming from a place of, well, Jack, I really want to try to leverage these new tools to try to tweak my messages to be as responsive and as engaging as possible, absolutely. You can still take those fundraising metrics, let's say those largest donation amounts or how much they've given over a certain time period, just a few quick examples, input that information, but keep out the name and contact info, God forbid, credit card info, right? Do not enter that in. And so you can still use these tools, but keep it non-contact specific. You absolutely do not want to compromise the security of any of that sensitive information your supporters have entrusted you with. Okay. What else here? Great question. I see here from Alexander, since we're starting to see demographic information becoming more and more important, how would you recommend dealing with situations where clients absolutely refuse to provide information? I don't have a magic cure for this, but just some things hopefully that you'll consider or come back to at the end of the day is, yes, we can't make people give information that they don't want to give. But I'd say the first place that I'd want any of you to start is to explain to them why you're asking, right? Is it that we want to provide you with more engaging content, aka hint, hint, I want to send you emails that are most relevant to you and don't spam up your inbox, right? So giving them that why, assuaging that anxiety can just be the first thing that I would advise if folks are hesitant to provide that information. And one other thing I'll include is, this comes back to what your own technology allows you to. But if you can make those fields, asking those questions mandatory in your form, do that. But obviously, of course, keep the common courtesy of allowing, do not wish to share option, because what we certainly don't want to do is leave folks with a bad taste in their mouth by demanding that they give us this. Granted, it's important information, but of course, we want to maintain the relationship and not get things started off on the wrong foot. Excellent. And then my lovely colleague Tara here, if you want to learn more about Giveffect's new AI writer tool, click the link and learn more. And then I think one more question here that I have, if there are any more, please fire away. But one more I see here. What are some of the things to consider when trying to phase out one or multiple data analytics tools or trying to implement others? Let me come back over here. First, let me speak to what we do at Giveffect as a part of our data migration. I would say the most important piece that we're looking for is what we call a legacy ID. What do we mean by that? A lot of times it should be standard practice, but ask your current tools because you can implement these if not at the very least, is do each of the contact records or various GIF records, what have you, have their own ID number associated with them? Because that is whether it's tools like Giveffect, I imagine some tools operate a bit similarly, but just to speak again to what we do at Giveffect, if we have those legacy IDs in the information you're looking to bring over, it's going to make it that much easier to have clean data at the outset as you start with us at Giveffect. It will, of course, reduce the opportunity for duplicates because even though, say, you have a file of donors and a file of volunteers and our cross-pollinators are in both, even if they have the same first name, last name, email address, again, tools differ, but if you have that common and consistent legacy key, okay, is what we call it, that's going to be the most important piece to consolidate your info, reduce the opportunity for duplicates, and allow that migration, that pass off to be as clean as possible. Okay, and then maybe final thing I'll say to that question is obviously as you're taking a look at any new nonprofit tools out there, right? Per tip number 5, ask them that question of what does your data migration process look like? Don't assume that they'll have you covered. Okay, do your team and yourselves a favor, execute that due diligence, and ask them what that data migration looks like. Do they provide a packet? We do. We provide you a data migration packet to say, here's how you should think about cleaning your data. Some basic tips. Ask them if their support team will provide that to you as a part of your onboarding to the platform. If not, maybe that's a reservation that you keep in mind as you compare across different tools. Okay. All right. I don't see any others here. Now, of course, feel free. You can reach out to our team at support@giveffect.com or even contact@giveffect.com. Or you can get in folks such as my lovely colleague here, Denise, again, for those who wish to stay and learn a bit more about Giveffect, she'll be happy to give you that overview. I'll stop sharing my screen here. But again, Denise, again, is one of our nonprofit solutions consultants here at the team. Denise, thanks for joining. And again, thanks folks for joining today. But Denise, you go right ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much, Jack, and thanks for the presentation. And I want to thank everyone for staying for the long haul to take heed to the information Jack had to impart. So my name is Denise. I'm a nonprofit solutions consultant with Giveffect, and it is going to be my great pleasure to provide you with a brief overview. I hear I only have a few moments to share. Giveffect is a 10-system software, as you may have heard Jack mentioned early on. Would love for you to stay on, and at the end, also my Calendly link will be shared if it hasn't been shared already. So if you are interested in learning more, this is just a teaser. Happy to schedule that session with you or have you access my calendar as well. And so just so we can jump in with that overview, Giveffect is a 10-system software, and these are some of the customers we serve today. And I often get, are they large, in revenue, smaller in revenue? How many records do they have? And I'm going to let you know that they run the gamut. So some of our customers have larger revenues than others. Some may have 2,000 records, others may have millions. So it is, they do run the gamut, but what they had in common before adopting Giveffect is that each of them, or many of them, were using 3 to 6 software systems to get their jobs done. And what we're looking at here are the highest conversions. So many were using Razor's Edge NXT, Donor Perfect, as well as eTapestry as their donations management system. And then we can kind of go across the board. Some of you may be using some of these systems. Giveffect is the solution to that, to using 3 to 6 software systems to get your job done. We at Giveffect, we understand that many nonprofits struggle with too many platforms and tools that don't speak to one another, missing or unorganized data, gaps in data due to role transitions, constantly downloading data and reports from one tool in order to upload into another tool. And I know Jack spoke to you more about that data and how important that is, in addition to manual data entry and repetitive tasks. Giveffect is the solution to that. Our mission is to equip nonprofits with one platform to manage all nonprofit activities and engage with all constituents. With Giveffect, you get a 360-degree view of all of your constituents and all of their activities to help grow your nonprofit. Just to reiterate, on the right is what Giveffect typically replaces. On the left is what we include. So Giveffect includes a CRM and online giving and merchant system. Smart automation brings all of these systems together in one place, and we're going to hone in on that smart automation today. Email and direct mail marketing, volunteer management system, events, auctions, and fundraising management, websites and web hosting, wealth screening and major gifts, membership management, grant tracking, as well as web forms are included. But I want to hone in on this smart automation. Our customers do report that they're saving at least 30 hours a month not doing manual data entry. So what does that really look like here in our software? So this is the Giveffect software. And with Giveffect, we're going to take an example of Windows contact profile and look at that smart automation in action. But I did want to point out, as Jack has referred to, and I just spoke about, Giveffect is a 10-system software, and our CRM includes multiple systems. So not just a contacts or donation system, there are multiple systems here that come out of the box. So you're not going to have to worry about whether those links are going to break or the information is not going to get transferred over to one's contact profile, because it definitely will, because we were built to do just that. So I'm going to go ahead and access Windows contact profile. And by coming here to Windows contact profile, you get a 360-degree view of a window and all of his activities throughout your organization. So of course, we can manage his basic contact information, just to kind of give you an overview. And by the way, this information that we're collecting on your constituents or on window, in this case, could be coming from a variety of areas. It could actually come into the system because one makes a donation online, or they participate in a fundraising event or activity that you're hosting. They purchase a ticket, or they RSVP or decide to volunteer with your organization and sign up for a job or shift. This is the short version of this. You have to come along to see more details. But so they would be able to sign up for volunteer jobs and shifts. Of course, we do things offline. Checks may come in offline, payments may come in offline, but either way, that information is going to build into this contact profile so that you do absolutely have a 360-degree view of all of Windows activities. We can manage basic contact information, any groups that he may be a part of for segmentation purposes as well. You may also refer to those in other systems as tags or attributes, but you are able to do that segmenting and marketing via those segmentations. Additionally, demographic information, social media hooks, and just because Wendell happens to be a volunteer here in the system, we can see the responses he gave on his most recent volunteer application. If you love paper, you can absolutely print that documentation as well. Additionally, with Giveffect, each individual will have a unique contact profile. If Wendell is married to Kate, they would have unique separate contact profiles, but you can create a household when you want to reach out to them as a couple. Additionally, this unique contact profile is associated with a unique ID, and this unique ID is associated with a unique volunteer QR code. So for those of you managing volunteers, these are one of the many ways that your volunteers can check in and check out of volunteer assignments. Additionally, with Giveffect, you are able to upload attachments in various areas of the software. The contact profile is one area where you can do that and rid yourself of paper or even looking for documents in a filing cabinet. With Giveffect, you can also manage any current relationships that Wendell may have and any former relationships he may have had in case you need him to reach back out to the Bank of America to help you secure that sponsorship or grant opportunity. Additionally, as we go down a bit, we are able to manage all of Wendell's giving to your organization over time as well. So we can manage, of course, all of his donations. And keep in mind, we're looking at this in a micro view, but if we wanted to look at this in a macro view for everyone that's given over time, we absolutely can. But we're able to manage the date of each gift, the amount, the campaign it's associated with. These reconciliation codes are going to be uber important, as you know, as you seek to understand the fund for which the donation is coming in to support. The general ledger coding your finance team has in your finance software is going to match Giveffect. And one of the main reasons for that is we're automated. So if someone were to go through a donation checkout flow, similar to this one, or even this one, when they go through that donation checkout flow, they're able to identify whether they want to make a one-time gift based on the way this customer has customized this, a monthly or a pledge. The pledge installments can be added here as well. So you can activate pledges for a donation as well. These tiers and amounts are totally customizable to you and your organization. Your supporter can elect to receive a tax receipt at the time of checkout or not. And we do segment individuals from organizations in our system. So they would elect or identify as an individual or an organization. And then one other highlight here as well is you can add additional questions. Maybe you wanted to know what prompted them to make that donation today, or in fact, where would they like that support to be allocated within your organization. Payments can be made via credit card and also bank payment. And so my reason for going through that, when somebody completes this donation checkout or they purchase a ticket, that information is going to be direct deposited into your bank account within 24 hours. You can also change that cadence, but you may have several campaigns, some of which may be restricted funds, like a capital campaign. Outside of that donate button on your website, the capital campaign dollars, in fact, may be direct deposited into a different checking account than anyone that makes a donation. So that's why we're capturing that information. And of course, we can get the data out of the system by running reports or simple queries. Additionally, the source of that particular income, was it because they attended an event, or maybe they was a direct mailer that you sent out? And then the system will also allow you to create online groups. So if someone came out to your event and you have an online group you're tracking for the 2023 gala event, then they would automatically be placed in that group as well. And then also designations. For those of you who are grant writers, you know, you may receive a grant and it might span multiple departments or programs. You are able to track and manage those designations as they come in as well at that point. So for Giveffect, additionally, we've taken the time to segment. I'm just going to kind of go through quickly any soft credits that window may have had. Tribute gifts, like in honor of or memory of, can be made offline and online and managed here in the system. Solicitations that maybe some of your supporters may have received, helped you receive some dollars. Recurring payments, as we mentioned, and also pledges that are being made in the system. We can also manage any volunteering that your supporters have done. So any assignments they may have gone to your website or the supporter portal to sign up for. So we do have a volunteer in addition to an event calendar that your supporters can come in and sign up for jobs and shifts. Once they do that, that information will land here in the under the volunteer tab of the contact profile. So at any given time, you'll understand the date, the opportunity or job, the number of hours that one signed up for, and actually what they completed as well. We can also manage regular shifts here in the system and any reservations that some of your groups may actually sign up for. So this would allow your supporters to actually manage those reservations on their own and free you up to do some other things required of you as well. Additionally, with our events and fundraising platform, I did want to mention there are multiple modules within that events and fundraising platform, which would allow you to absolutely manage what we're looking at here as an example of a simple donations campaign. It may be a Giving Tuesday campaign, a capital campaign. You can host as many of these or launch as many of these in the system at one time as you like to raise dollars. They're totally customizable. This is an example of a ticketed event, although they haven't added their tickets yet because their event is not until October. This actually is a live client site as well. They have a $200,000 goal and they've raised over $30,000 thus far. There are 163 days left. We can make a donation or buy a sponsorship today and not necessarily a ticket. I did want to point out with our ticketing as well, you are able to have multiple ticket prices. This particular organization does not have the multiple ticket prices, but if you did, because I have a cart, I could come in and purchase at multiple levels. You can also employ a promo code. So if you want a window to come into your event at no charge, or some of your constituents, those you're supporting, to have a discount or no charge, you can actually add a button here that says promo code. They can provide the promo code and check out. Tax receipting would also be available here. And I did want to let you know that we have a ticketing system. And so if I were inviting all of you, I'll put your first name, last name, and email in. When I check out, you would absolutely receive a ticket that looks something like this with all the great information about that event. We do have a ticketing system to manage all of those tickets, but you'd be able to scan this QR code through our Event Buddy app, and it would automatically be dated and timestamped back in the system. So you're not gonna have to worry about going back to the office to determine who actually showed up and who didn't. That would be tracked in the system in Giveffect as well. This is an example of what we call an RSVP campaign. An RSVP campaign may or may not have a fee associated with it. This is not a live client site. I set this up. I have multiple things going on here. I just want to show you an example. We have an integration with Zoom. If you're using Zoom Pro or higher, so if someone went through a checkout flow and they're going to join you and they need that credential from Zoom, that would happen if they chose one of these dates or for that Zoom meeting. Also, we can add additional questions to any checkout flow, including ticketing or RSVP. Maybe you want to know what the protein they're looking for, or the salad dressing, or why they're attending your event. For registration, we do not have a cart, but we're able to identify the specific maybe class we want to choose here and the different levels, and we can also employ that promo code as well. Again, as we're going through all of these different systems, we also have peer-to-peer. I'll just kind of highlight some of them. So if you're hosting a walk, run, or ride, you can absolutely include those and create those campaigns in Giveffect. Keep in mind, a peer-to-peer campaign does not have to be an event. It could just be a Giving Tuesday campaign, and you want your current supporters to reach out to their friends and family and network to join your team, so we can register a team, participate as an individual, or sponsor this campaign. And then all of your supporters, by the way, can now have a little healthy competition. So whether they were supporting your organization previously or not, they now have contact profiles created for them, so you can properly thank them for supporting your organization and continue to send them information about your great works and outcomes as well. Where is all this information going? Again, it's going back into the donations management system, or the system of its choice. It could be volunteering. But again, we're able to track and manage giving, volunteering, all of the campaigns we just kind of highlighted as well. Fundraising teams Wendell may have participated on, RSVPs that he's responded to. Just kind of skip a couple of these tickets. With that ticket, it is dated and timestamped. So we would understand if Wendell were using a particular ticket like he did on May 9th, 2023 at 12:03. If someone else purchased that ticket for him, that information would be listed here as well. So it's a great way to capture how one entered into maybe entered the system and supporting your organization overall as well. And I will not leave out information that Jack just presented as well. We can query in the system, of course. So for all of your data needs, you can get that data out. So we've got it in, we need to be able to get that data out. And if I wanted to run a quick report, I want to show you how easily it's done. For all of those donors that gave an amount that is greater than or equal to $500,000, I can add as many filters here as I'd like here, maybe even 100. I'll run that search, but you never want to do it again. It's very easy to add the filters there. We can name it, save it, and the next time you want to access this information in real time, you can pull it up. But we talk about automation and making your lives easier, not harder. So you may want to automate an email. So this report, from this day forward, you determine the frequency. Maybe it's monthly. You can also change the format and have it sent to you and anyone else using the software. So every month, those individuals, including yourself, would receive that report. At this point, we can do several things here. I'm just going to highlight them quickly. We can, instead of going out into Word and creating your letters and drafting those are created in the system. You can batch print envelopes, letters, as well as tax receipts if this was an acknowledgement. And so you'll be able to go ahead and do that. The system will also track seasonal addresses, and we do update the system with national change of address information regularly as well. So that's there. For your automated email acknowledgements, when someone makes a donation or they sign up for an event or purchase a ticket, we have those automated email rules here in the system that you can set up for each one of your campaigns or the donate button on your website. So you can create a rule. For an example, for that generic donate button on your website, you may have a rule that anyone that gives greater than or equal to $200 will receive a different acknowledgement than somebody that gave less than $200. So that information is there for you for each campaign. For participants, events that you may be hosting, yes, we can send out an email that is also includes those automated rules, but you can also schedule subsequent emails. So when you create the campaign, if you're a department of 1, 2, or 20, it's going to make you look that much bigger, because when you create that campaign, you will also think forward to schedule some email to go out, reminding people about the event, announcing the keynote speaker, or letting them know what to bring. Similarly, for volunteer jobs, for you volunteer managers out there that are on the call, for your volunteers that are signing up for different opportunities, you can also have a different acknowledgement or email rule, and also schedule those subsequent emails to go out, and you determine when that would be triggered in advance. And so I'm looking at the time. Am I doing okay with time here, Tara? Also, I guess I'm good with my time here. Also for the system, you can, as I mentioned, you can generate those acknowledgements online. You can also create general correspondence and acknowledgements for offline that you're gonna mail. And you can upload signature blocks. We can craft those acknowledgements in the system. Again, no need to go into Word to do that. And then we have some replacement variables that are here in the system as well. And you can include as many custom fields as you like in the system too. Why is that important? You may be tracking, like me, blood pressure levels, maybe information about favorite ice cream. You really want to get to know your constituents and communicate with them more effectively. And so that's that in the system. I did want to highlight a couple of other functionality here before I take questions. In the system, we also offer workflow automations. So this would allow you to add a workflow. Have you ever thought, every time a new donor makes a donation, I definitely want to be able to reach out to them in some way and really effectively communicate with them so they'll become long-term donors, but maybe this kind of life has gotten in the way. You can create those journeys here in our system by drag and dropping. You can drag and drop the functionality or the action, the marketing and communications. So you may have email that are going out to those particular individuals, and you set this up in advance. So you may determine that anytime a new donor comes in, they are automatically going to receive a new welcome email series. After that, how many days later? Maybe we choose 10. We're going to give them time to kind of marinate over that letter that we've already sent them, their acknowledgement. Additionally, maybe some days later, you want the second email series to go out related to new donors. And maybe we're going to do that 25 days later. Again, you have the autonomy to determine when that is going to be. So they would automatically receive the letter or the email, in this case, that you've decided. Maybe if they have not read that email, either one of those emails, you decide that you're going to have an SMS text message sent out, so that you would craft that and it would automatically be sent out. Maybe if they have opened it, someone on your team, yourself, your CEO, is going to be tasked to go ahead and contact that person. Maybe they're going to call each and every new donor. And the software, through our nonprofit management and task area functionality, would remind that person to actually fulfill that task as well. And as we talk about more about automation in the system, our system will automate tax receipts as well as your giving statements as well. So you're not going to have to do that. You can run those queries and reports fairly quickly in the software. And I just kind of want to highlight also the ability if you're sending out giving statements or annual statements, you have the ability to do that as well in the system. So you can send those statements out. We have a whole statements area that you can create. If you're managing major gifts or potential major donors, we can manage them. This moves management from the time you've identified a particular donor and to the time they've actually supported your organization. And this way we can get a specific understanding of what we're expecting, what we received, any timelines related to that. And similarly with grants, you can also do the same thing. If you have some grant writers out there, I've always done this on an Excel spreadsheet, but you are able to also manage that here, again, from the research stage until the such time you've been awarded in a grant. We're looking at each one of these opportunities separate and apart from one another. So if I just wanted to kind of take a look at the Atlanta Foundation, we can manage our timeline. You can upload the grant to this area in case you need to access it. And then we have all of our interactions. Maybe I'm having a phone call with someone It's an inbound call, maybe they called me, but I can track various interactions here in the system, including within this grants tracking, any donations that are linked to this particular opportunity or grant, the programs for which they support in the system within the organization. We can add tasks. Maybe you need another one of your colleagues to write a report by a certain date. So we can task them, actually decide when we'd like that due date, and then they would get notification letting them know to complete that task, and then they can manage it in addition to any notes. And so I'm gonna stop here. I know I've tried to cram a lot in a small amount of time, but if you have any questions, please let me know. Put it in the Q&A. Does anyone have any questions at all? I see some of them here. Could you briefly touch on the online form builder? Sure. So the online form builder in our system, you can add a form to any checkout flow. We've looked at some of those, but you also might want to create web forms in the system and have those sent out. They could be surveys, information people are signing up for, but we replaced the likes of like Jotform or Sign Up Genius with some of these forms, or even Survey Monkeys. Surveys are a great way to do that as well. So we can not only create those web forms, and it's easy to create. So I can include a name, the form that this is related to. I can add waivers here in the system, expiration dates. And I did want to mention also with some of our forms, if you're requiring someone to upload data, they're able, like you want them to upload an ID or some documentation, they would be able to do that in the system as well. So that's all of our forms. When somebody does complete a form, for example, that information, of course, we can look at the data on a macro view, but if we go full circle into Windows contact profile, we can look at any of the forms that he's completed. Maybe you're calling him because he volunteered at an event. But before you do that, you might want to know what the responses were just from Windows. And so we can take a look at that. So there was a web form that he created, that he answered. And in that web form that we sent out, he has some responses. So you want to do that in case he indicated something that was alarming before you go ahead and give him that call. Are there any other questions? Well, if there aren't any other questions, I kind of exceeded my time here. I did want to let you know that you can absolutely go ahead and join, access my calendar. And I'm happy to put my information in the chat, or for you to go ahead and access my calendar for a 45-minute session, overview session. So if you don't have any questions, Tara, I'll pass it over to you.